You need to listen to what I'm telling you to do right now. Have a seat, please.
Why would you think that you could tase me? I'm freaking picking up trash on my property. I am a student, and all of you have weapons drawn, and I feel threatened.
Sit down and drop that object.
I will not sit down. I refuse to sit down until you guys put your weapons away.
He was employed by the school to pick up the garbage around the dorm. So he was at work, and he was seen from the street by a police officer. He was pulled over by the police officer. He showed the police officer his school ID, and the student lives out of state. So a state ID or driver's license, you may not have that. You don't necessarily need it. Okay, and when you're in a different state and you're at a university, showed him his school ID, that wasn't sufficient for the officer. And at that point, the situation became combative. And if you watch the tape, because here's what happened. They had the police camera, which that tape came out later. And then some of the students who were inside of the dorm, many of them white. Okay, I think one of them was actually African American. They filmed the police altercation with the students, and they put it on YouTube. They broke the story. And they were watching one of their classmates, one police officer, 2, 6. There was between 6 and 8 police officers. They had riot shields. One police officer pulled out his gun. And I mean, it was deadly. And it was just like that. And so that reverberated through the school. And I actually had contact with the student right after it happened, like an hour maybe after it happened. And it reverberated through the school. And I think it was a real wake-up call. And unfortunately, the last that I heard of this case, the police officers were not found of any wrongdoing. So it's not just an issue of like punishing that individual police officer. It's like, why did that happen in the first place? Why was that student seen as someone that driving by you should stop the car for? He had one of those sticks with the kind of the grip that you use to pick up trash. It's a thin aluminum stick. The police officer said, "You have a weapon, put that down." And this student, actually he stayed inside of his skin, because a situation like that will make you jump out of your skin. You can go into paralysis. You can go into all kinds of things. And the student stayed inside of his skin, and he's like, "You know what? I'm not going to do that. I showed you my ID. He had a bucket, and it's obvious. It's obvious what was happening in that situation." And the police officer could have said, "Okay, I pulled you over, blah, blah, blah. Show me your ID. You're at work here." End of situation. If it even needed to happen in the first place. So I don't exactly know what the city of Boulder is doing, but there's some kind of training that they need, or they need to enhance about implicit bias. There's something that they need, or they need to enhance about like how to de-escalate a situation, because they escalated that situation. They could have killed this dude, and it just for nothing, So, and that's when we start to get into the difference between diversity, inclusion, and equity. Equity, you have to start to tweak the structural mechanics of institutions and how people are trained, so that like we don't have systems that recreate certain attitudes over and over, and that basically sweep certain attitudes or actions under the rug.
Yeah, those attitudes, just like you're saying. And yes, you are right. The city of Boulder is doing a training. And one of our interviewees, Nikhil Mankekar, who also produces a show here in KGNU about people of color too. He is, behind, he's spearheading this training for the police. And I think that is extremely important. Something that must be done, be done to really understand these issues in a deeper way.
As a mother of 2 African American men, that's horrifying. When I watched that video, I didn't want to see the whole thing, because I'm scared that he would have gotten shot, or you know, something would have happened to him. And I think about that with my boys. When my youngest son went to college at University of Kansas, and he didn't tell me until like a month later that he was looking for his friend. He went off campus to drive and to find his friend's apartment. And he's on the phone talking to his friend, like, what building is it? What building is it? What building are you? You know, where are you? Next thing you know, 5 police officers show up because an elderly white lady looked at him, and I guess she was scared because why? He was targeted. He was black. He had a vehicle. You know, he's on the phone saying, what building are you in? And they start questioning him. And why? For what reason? Same thing. And I'm glad that he didn't tell me at that moment. I would have been freaking out. I'm so scared. That's a fear that a lot of people do not have to worry about. And it should not be like that. It's a way of life for me. A way of life. And is that right? Is that a good life? Is that being equitable in our community? No.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Yeah, and because the other thing is that we see, this is after years of people uploading encounters with police, that either there was some level of racial profiling that was going on, or encounters that ended in death. Okay, this is after years of people uploading these videos, and I think that there's a sense by a lot of people in Boulder, and it was. I think it's also exists at Naropa, but Naropa is symbolic of a lot of what's happening in Boulder. There's a sense that, well, these kind of things don't happen here. That happens in Denver. Because Boulder, we're enlightened. Boulder, we're sustainable. We're green. We're progressive. And then bam, and so it's not really. It can happen anywhere, and it's happening all over the place.